The courtroom held its collective breath when Julian Mercer delivered his opening salvo. "My lawyer will destroy you if you push this." He might as well have been ordering lunch. 19 years old, slouched in his chair with the kind of confidence that comes from never experiencing consequences, Julian spoke with absolute certainty. Around him, the Providence Municipal Courtroom went still, not with shock, but with the uncomfortable silence that follows when someone says what shouldn't be said aloud. Judge Frank Caprio set down his pen with deliberate care and raised his eyes above his reading glasses. "Mr. Mercer, you're in a courtroom, not a business negotiation." Julian's shrug conveyed infinite boredom. "I'm just being honest, Your Honor. My father is Theodore Mercer. I assume you're familiar with the name." The judge's voice remained level, almost gentle. "I'm familiar with the law, Mr. Mercer. That's what governs these proceedings." "Sure," Julian's smirk widened. "But let's not pretend this case isn't going to disappear." Across the room, Miss Reyes, the court clerk, shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Officer D'Angelo straightened his posture near the back wall. Judge Caprio simply watched the young man before him, measuring something that couldn't be entered into evidence. Then he picked up his pen. "We'll see," Caprio said quietly. Text message screenshot, 9:02 a.m. Julian. "Judge won't last 10 minutes once Dad makes his call." "This is a joke." Miss Reyes stood and addressed the court with professional composure. Case number 2027-TR99214. The State of Rhode Island versus Julian Theodore Mercer. Charges include reckless driving in a pedestrian zone, crosswalk violation with injury, verbal intimidation of a law enforcement officer, destruction of a legal citation, and contempt of court. Julian rolled his eyes toward the ceiling. "Contempt for what exactly?" "For your behavior during the traffic stop, Mr. Mercer," Miss Reyes replied evenly. Rachel Van rose from her seat, mid-30s, immaculately dressed, the kind of attorney whose hourly rate could be guessed from the cut of her suit alone. "Your Honor, we're prepared to pay the standard fine today and resolve this matter efficiently. My client maintains a clean juvenile record and we believe—" "Sit down, counselor." Attorney Van blinked. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward traffic. This court is not a payment processing center. Sit." She sat. Judge Caprio redirected his attention to Julian. "You were issued a warning 9 months ago. Do you recall that incident?" Julian waved his hand vaguely, as if swatting away a gnat. Miss Reyes consulted her files. "Administrative warning, case number 2026-TR40771. The responding officer noted that the driver used threatening language. Documentation filed, but no citation was issued." She continued reading from the prior warning. September 2026. Subject stated, "You'll regret pulling me over. Verbal warning only. Officer declined. To cite due to subject's age and first contact with law enforcement." Julian shrugged with theatrical indifference. "I was 16. It didn't mean anything." Caprio leaned forward slightly. "And now you're 19. What changed?" "I got better lawyers." The courtroom absorbed this statement without reaction. Judge Caprio made a note, then looked up. "Tell me what happened on March 11th. Julian exhaled, as if the mere act of explaining was exhausting. "I was driving through downtown Providence. Some elderly woman stepped into the crosswalk without looking. I braked. She overreacted. That's the entire incident." "That's the entire incident?" "Yes, a harmless tap on the brakes. She exaggerated the danger." Judge Caprio turned to his clerk. "Do we have the traffic camera footage from that intersection?" "Yes, Your Honor. Pedestrian camera evidence date, March 11th, 2027 time, 3:19 p.m. Location, Broad Street and Weybosset intersection. Vehicle, Rhode Island license plate 7BX4491. Vehicle, enters marked crosswalk at 38 miles per hour. Pedestrian visible at midpoint of crossing. Vehicle brakes within 4 feet of contact. Pedestrian falls backward. Caprio studied the young man before him. Mr. Mercer, what's the posted speed limit in a designated pedestrian zone? 15 miles per hour, I believe. It's 10. You were traveling at 38. Julian tilted his head with feigned thoughtfulness. The camera's probably calibrated incorrectly. The camera doesn't lie, Mr. Mercer. Neither do I. Judge Caprio set the photograph aside and called the next witness. Officer Brian Holt, please step forward. Officer Holt approached the witness stand with the measured calm of someone who'd spent 20 years in law enforcement. 40-something, hands folded, expression neutral. He'd learned long ago not to react to anything he heard in courtrooms. Officer Holt, Judge Caprio began. Please describe what you observed on the afternoon of March 11th. Holt nodded. I was monitoring traffic at the intersection of Broad and Weybosset. At approximately 3:19 p.m., I observed the defendant's vehicle enter a marked crosswalk at excessive speed. A pedestrian, later identified as Martha Dunley, was midway through the crossing. The vehicle braked suddenly. Ms. Dunley fell backward, attempting to avoid impact. Did you approach the vehicle? I did, Your Honor. I activated my emergency lights and conducted a traffic stop approximately half a block north of the intersection. What occurred during that stop? Officer Holt glanced at his notes. I requested license and registration. The defendant provided his license but refused the registration request. He stated, Holt read directly from his report. Do you know who my father is? He'll ruin your badge if you write me up. Julian laughed once, sharp and bitter. That's not what I said. Caprio looked at him. What did you say? I said my father's a lawyer and he'd want to review the evidence. That's not a threat. It's a legal right, Officer Holt continued without prompting. I explained the violation and issued the citation. The defendant took the citation, tore it in half, and threw it out his car window. Then he informed me I was wasting his time. Did you feel threatened, officer? Holt paused, choosing his words carefully. Yes, Your Honor, not physically threatened. But the message was clear. Drop this matter or face professional consequences. March 11, 2027, 3:23 p.m. Officer Holt. Sir, I need you to accept this citation. Julian Mercer. You need to get a real job. My father bills more in an hour than you make in a month. Officer Holt. Sir, please. Julian Mercer. Write it if you want. I'll make sure you regret it. The courtroom absorbed the audio recording like a physical weight, settling on everyone's shoulders. Julian's expression remained neutral, but his jaw tightened incrementally. Judge Caprio removed his reading glasses. Mr. Mercer, that statement doesn't sound hypothetical to me. It was frustration, Your Honor. I didn't mean... You told a law enforcement officer he would regret performing his sworn duty. Julian's attorney leaned toward him and whispered urgently. He shook his head, dismissing her. Miss Reyes cleared her throat. Your Honor, we also have telephone contact records. Proceed. She brought up documentation on the courtroom monitor. 3 phone calls were placed to the clerk's office within 40 minutes of the traffic stop. 2 from Mercer Law Group. 1 voicemail was left by a paralegal. Caprio nodded. Play the voicemail. March 11th, 2027, 4:02 p.m. This is Dana calling from Mercer Law Group regarding case number 2027 TR 99214. Mr. Mercer requests a callback before this matter becomes public record. We'd like to discuss resolution options. Thank you. Attorney Van stood quickly. Your Honor, that call was purely procedural. We were simply attempting to... Counselor, sit. She sat. Caprio studied the screen. Procedural contact follows established process. This was pressure. Julian leaned forward. My dad was trying to help me. That's what parents do. Help means supporting you, Mr. Mercer. It doesn't mean erasing accountability. Same thing. No, Caprio said quietly. It's not. Call log timeline, March 11, 2027. 3:17 p.m. Traffic stop initiated 3:31 p.m. First call to clerk's office, Mercer Law Group. 3:48 p.m. Second call to court administration, 4:02 p.m. Voicemail left requesting quiet resolution. Miss Reyes gestured toward the gallery. Mrs. Dunley is present, Your Honor. Mrs. Dunley, please come forward. An elderly woman rose slowly from the gallery seating. 72 years old, silver hair, moving with careful deliberation. She wore a wrist brace and walked with a slight limp. She took the witness stand and folded her hands in her lap. Mrs. Dunley, Judge Caprio said gently, can you describe what you remember from March 11th? Her voice emerged soft but clear. I was crossing at the intersection. I had the walk signal. The white figure was illuminated. I was approximately halfway across when I heard tires squealing. I looked up and saw a car approaching at high speed. I tried to move backward, but I stumbled. I fell on my hip and caught myself with my wrist. Did the driver stop? No, Your Honor. He slowed down, but he didn't stop. He shouted something out his window as he drove past. What did he say? She hesitated. He said I should stay home if I'm too slow to cross the street, Julian muttered under his breath. That's not... Judge Caprio raised one hand. Julian stopped mid-sentence. Mrs. Dunley, Caprio continued, were you injured? Twisted wrist, bruised hip. I went to urgent care that evening. Miss Reyes handed a document to the bench. Caprio scanned it carefully. Medical documentation, St. Joseph's, urgent care, March 11, 2027. Patient, Martha Dunley, age 72. Chief complaint, fall in crosswalk. Diagnosis, wrist sprain, left, hip contusion. Treatment, immobilization, pain management. Status, treated and released, Judge Caprio. Thanked Mrs. Dunley and asked her to remain in the courtroom. She nodded and returned to her seat. Julian leaned back in his chair. She's fine, it was barely anything. She fell because of your actions. She fell because she's elderly and unsteady. Caprio set the medical file down with deliberate care. Mr. Mercer, what's the base fine for these violations? Julian glanced at his attorney. She whispered something. He shrugged. I don't know. A few $100? $920. Julian actually laughed. That's it? My father bills more than that in 10 minutes. Judge Caprio's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the courtroom atmosphere. He looked down at the file before him, then back up. Mrs. Dunley, you taught at Hope High School for 30 years. Is that correct? She nodded from her seat. Yes, Your Honor. And after retirement, you taught free evening classes for adult learners. I did, Your Honor. Caprio turned his attention back to Julian. Your father's firm, Mercer Law Group, publishes an annual pro bono report. Mrs. Dunley is listed as a community volunteer they support. She taught English to immigrant families. Your father's firm provided legal services for those same families. Julian's face went blank. She taught people for free, Caprio continued, while your father billed hundreds of dollars per hour. And you told her to stay home. Julian's voice emerged quieter than before. I didn't know that. Would it have mattered if you did? He didn't answer. Mr. Mercer, do you still believe she exaggerated? Julian looked at his hands. I don't know. That's the problem. You don't think about other people at all. Julian's jaw tightened. He muttered under his breath, barely audible. Spare me the charity parade. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was dense with everything unsaid. Everything Julian didn't understand and refused to learn. Judge Caprio simply stared at him. 5 seconds passed. 7, 10, 12. Finally, Caprio spoke. Miss Reyes, is there additional evidence? She pulled up an email on the monitor. Yes, Your Honor. This was sent to our office 2 days after the incident. Email evidence date, March 13th, 2027, from Mercer Law Group Administration to Providence Municipal Court. Subject, Case 2027-TR 99214. Resolution request. We respectfully recommend quiet resolution given the family's civic involvement. A favorable outcome serves mutual interests. Judge Caprio read the email twice, then set it aside. Mr. Mercer, your father attempted to make this disappear. Did you ask him to do that? Julian shifted in his seat. No, he just did it. Why? Because he thought it was stupid, a waste of time. And you agreed? Yeah, I still do. Judge Caprio leaned forward, his voice remaining calm but carrying undeniable weight. Here's what I find. You drove recklessly in a pedestrian zone. You nearly struck a 72-year-old woman. You threatened a law enforcement officer. You destroyed a legal citation. And then your family attempted to use influence to erase the incident. He paused, letting each statement settle. You think power protects you. It doesn't. It just makes your mistakes more visible. Julian's attorney stood. Your Honor, my client is young and... Counselor, your client is a legal adult. Sit down. She sat. Caprio continued. The base fine is $920. But I'm not interested in your money, Mr. Mercer. I'm interested in whether you can learn. Learn what? Julian asked. That threatening people is not strength. That wealth is not authority. That every person in this city, Mrs. Dunley, Officer Holt, the court clerk, the bailiff, matters exactly as much as you do. Julian said nothing. So here's the sentence. You'll pay the base fine, but half will be suspended pending completion of a restorative justice program. You will write formal apology letters to Officer Holt and Mrs. Dunley. You will complete 140 hours of community service with the Pedestrian Safety Department. You will produce 2 public service announcements for school safety programs. You will complete an anger management course. And you will submit a 900-word essay on accountability. Julian stared. You're joking. I'm not. You have 10 weeks. If you complete the program, the fine is reduced. If you don't, the full amount applies, plus penalties for non-compliance. This is insane. Caprio's voice remained absolutely calm. This is consequences. Power without humility collapses on contact with truth. You're about to learn that. He turned to Miss Reyes. This court is also adopting new protocols. Any attempt to intimidate court officers triggers automatic escalation. Youth drivers involved in pedestrian incidents receive mandatory safety review, and any external contact regarding active cases must be logged publicly. This begins today. Service requirements. Case 2027-TR 99214. Apology letter. Officer Brian Holt. Apology letter. Martha Dunley. Community service. 140 hours. Pedestrian safety. Public service announcements. 2 recordings. Anger management course. Completion required accountability essay. 900 words minimum. Deadline. 10 weeks from today. Julian's face had gone pale. My father's going to... Your father isn't here, Caprio said. You are, and you're the one who has to fix this. Julian opened his mouth, then closed it. Do you understand the terms? Julian nodded stiffly. I need to hear you say it. I understand. Good. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. The first week, Julian submitted an apology letter to Officer Holt. It consisted of 2 sentences and ended with, I hope this resolves the matter. Miss Reyes returned it the same day with a note. An apology acknowledges harm. This is a closing statement. The second attempt was longer but worse, including the phrase, if I made you uncomfortable. Miss Reyes rejected it again. By the third draft, Julian had rewritten it 8 times. He finally submitted something honest. I threatened you because I was used to getting my way. That was wrong. You were doing your job and I tried to intimidate you into stopping. I'm sorry. Miss Reyes approved it. The community service proved harder. Julian reported to the pedestrian safety office on a rainy Tuesday morning. The coordinator, Mr. Ortiz, handed him a reflective vest and a clipboard. You'll be working crosswalk assistance, morning and evening rush hours. Stay visible. Help people who need assistance. Don't speak unless they speak first. Julian spent the first 3 days standing at intersections, watching people cross. It was boring, humiliating. He hated every minute. By the second week, he started noticing things. How long it took some people to cross. How cars didn't always wait for pedestrians. How a woman with a stroller had to time the traffic light perfectly, or risk getting stranded halfway across. One morning, he helped an elderly man with a walker navigate a curb cut. The man thanked him. Julian nodded without speaking, but something about the interaction stayed with him. Progress timeline, weeks 110. Week 1, first apology rejected, service hours, 6 week 2, second apology rejected, service hours, 14 week 3, final apology approved, service hours, 28 week 4, began PSA scripting, service hours, 42 week 5, recorded first PSA, required re-recording. Service hours, 61 week 6, anger management course started, service hours, 79 week 7, Mrs. Dunley apology submitted and approved, service hours, 98 week 8, completed second PSA, service hours, 118 week 9, essay in progress, service hours, 133 week 10, all requirements met, service hours, 142. Mrs. Dunley appeared at one of his shifts during week 7. Julian saw her approaching the crosswalk and froze. She didn't recognize him initially. He was wearing the reflective vest and a baseball cap. But when she got closer, she stopped. "You're Julian?" "Yes, ma'am." She studied him for a moment. "You're doing the service hours?" "I am." She nodded slowly. "How's it going?" "It's harder than I thought it would be." "Good," she said, not unkindly. Simply, matter of fact. Julian helped her cross. When they reached the opposite curb, she turned back. "Thank you for the letter. I received it last week." "Did you read it?" "I did." She smiled faintly. "You listened this time." The anger management course consisted of 8 sessions. Julian resisted at first, sitting in the back, barely participating. But by session 4, something cracked. The instructor asked him to describe a time he'd felt powerless. Julian couldn't think of a single instance. That realization stayed with him for days. The essay took the longest. He started it 4 times, deleting each draft. The prompt was deceptively simple. "What does accountability mean?" He finally wrote, "Accountability means facing what you did instead of hiding behind who you are. I thought my father's name protected me. It didn't. It just made me think I didn't have to answer for my actions. I threatened Officer Holt because I was scared of getting in trouble, and I thought power was the same as being right. It's not. Power is just louder. Being right means listening, learning, and fixing what you broke. I'm still learning." He submitted it on a Sunday night. Miss Reyes called Monday morning. "It's approved. All requirements are met." The follow-up hearing was scheduled for early June. Julian walked into the courtroom and felt different. Not confident. Smaller, perhaps. More aware. He stood at the defense table and waited. Judge Caprio entered and reviewed the completion file. Miss Reyes confirmed everything. Letters delivered, hours logged, PSAs recorded, course finished, essay submitted. "Mr. Mercer," Judge Caprio said, "you've completed the program. What did you learn?" Julian thought carefully before responding. "That threatening people isn't strength. It's fear pretending to be something else." Caprio nodded. "Anything else?" "That my father's name doesn't make me matter. What I do makes me matter." "Do you believe that now?" "I'm starting to." Judge Caprio leaned back in his chair. "The court accepts your completion. The suspended fine is remitted. Your record will reflect successful rehabilitation." He paused. "I want you to remember something. The people you worked with, Mr. Ortiz, Mrs. Dunley, Officer Holt, they didn't have to forgive you. They chose to give you a chance. Don't waste it. Julian's throat tightened. I won't, Your Honor. Good. Case closed. The gavel came down softly. Policy Adoption Bulletin, June 2027, Providence. Municipal Court implements intimidation flag protocol. Youth driver safety incidents trigger automatic review. Anti-influence firewall established. Public contact log active. 4 additional jurisdictions reviewing model for adoption. Julian left the courtroom and saw Officer Holt standing near the doorway. They made eye contact. Holt nodded once. Julian nodded back. Outside, the June sun was bright and warm. Julian pulled out his phone and saw a text from his father. Call me when you're done. He didn't call, not yet. Instead, he walked toward the bus stop, past the crosswalk where everything had started. An elderly woman was waiting to cross. Julian stopped and waited with her until the light changed. She smiled at him. He smiled back. A few blocks away, Judge Frank Caprio wrote a note in the margin of the closed file. Respect weighs more than any legal threat. He set the file aside and opened the next one. The system turned, indifferent to names, responsive only to truth. This is a dramatization for storytelling and educational purposes, not legal advice or factual reporting.